Yo, what is up again? And we are here back again with another video. And if you haven't noticed again, the video that is playing is again not an actual multiplayer game in Call of Duty, but another campaign mission. I'm sorry for that. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get to actually do multiplayer, but for some reason the game just seems to hate me. But other than that, we're all good. And today we're going to be talking about something that is not really surprising to see, but it's just really dumb. And I really hope if you're watching this, if you take this seriously, and I do know that there is at least a few people watching this kind of seriously, please actually listen to what I'm saying here. I'll try and, speak in a more dumbed down tone in order to make it easier to understand. I'm not trying to sound condescending, but they said that they couldn't understand anything I was saying, so we'll just continue. The Libertarian Party, these people, they support peace, civil liberties, and free markets, as they say in their bio here on X. And it's very, very interesting because on April 2nd of not on April 2nd of 2026. It was actually about, I don't even know, around 6 o'clock on April 1st, they said, quote, "The Constitution does not authorize space exploration," with a GIF of some clip from some random TV show. At the bottom it says, "It is a waste of money." Now, this is just dumb on multiple levels. I mean, let's actually read that again. Like, let's really grasp that. The Constitution does not authorize space exploration. Are we being dead ass? Are we being dead ass? Because this is already just really, really short-sighted. Are you really going to ask, why doesn't the Constitution authorize space exploration? Oh, gee, I wonder why. But other than stating the just absolute obvious here, which is really funny though, we are really doing something that I'm not a fan of, like, in all things. We're applying the Constitution by looking at what it allows instead of seeing what it doesn't allow. This is like how some people treat the Bible. Either they will say, okay, it doesn't say that it condones this, so we're not going to do it, or it says it doesn't say that this thing is bad, so we can do it. These are two moral approaches that apply to any list of rules that doesn't clarify literally everything, or any moral code. And the Constitution, well, it doesn't clarify space exploration because space exploration wasn't a thing. So why? And worse than that, I think that if it doesn't say something is wrong, then, it's probably not, a bad idea to do it. Now, of course, there can be bad things that happen after a code like the Constitution or the rules in the Bible are created, but they can usually be derived in some form from, those original things. For example, in the Bible it says do not murder, like a couple times, and, manslaughter is a crime that can be derived from murder in the Bible. But space exploration, you can't really derive that from anything. What are you deriving there? That it doesn't make any sense. And what we're saying here is pretty much that the whole point of the Constitution, they don't know everything, okay? That's kind of obvious. Like, the Founding Fathers knew that they weren't going to know everything, and so they didn't try and act like they knew everything by trying to decide every single little thing in the Constitution, right? And they had a ton of disagreements over policy too. So it's not like they would have just decided, okay, so we're going to decide everything that the future U.S. does, because they had arguments over what the U.S. future would do. And they knew that their policy ideas would probably not be too relevant in the future. Now, let's go a little bit, further. With two parties. The founding fathers did not want America to be a two-party system, and they mainly wanted it to, have more parties, and they also meant the Constitution to be changed by a supermajority of the legislature, because you wouldn't want it to be really easy to take away anything from the Constitution. But the problem with that is, of course, we do have two parties, or two main parties, and that means it's difficult to get supermajorities, and only when something is very bipartisan, or only during a time where one party controls, like, a huge amount of Congress, an amendment will get, passed through and actually become part of the U.S. government and the Constitution. Now, there's a problem, right, with this. You're going to want to have, say space exploration. Yeah, space exploration is not really controversial, so you could probably get it through. There's a lot of bipartisan support for that, right? But that doesn't make any sense to me, because if you need to add every single thing to the Constitution before you're able to do it, then we're going to be spending all of our time trying to add amendments to the Constitution, and at that point, why would it even matter? The Constitution is a sacred document that is exclusive to certain things, and by just allowing everything and anything to come in and take its own position in it wouldn't make a lot of sense. It's meant to be for those special contentious things that really affect, like, America. And space exploration, while it is very important, why do we need an amendment to approve that? And if you have an amendment there, like, if we can change the Constitution, then what's really the point? Because we can still just, change it. If one party had complete rule, they could just change it to be whatever it wanted. And would libertarians support that? No, of course not. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's very strange. It is very strange. And there's another issue with this, and it's that libertarians, for some reason, seem to think that it is a waste. It's a waste of money to do space exploration, and I would have to disagree, considering that it is going to, probably be very integral in, like, the future world for a lot of us, and it's going to be something that's incredibly paramount to what happens in the future in space. So that's something we have to remember during this entire thing. How is it a waste of money? No clue. And really quick, let's go back to the part of where they're saying that the Constitution doesn't condone it. If we can just, change it on a whim, would you want us to just be able to change it on a whim like that? All you need is a supermajority, and then you get it, and you could just get all the bipartisan things through, and then it's all enshrined to the sacred document. You can't whine about it anymore. Well, no. You could say that you don't want the Constitution to be changed, but then that goes against the Founding Fathers and what they originally said, because they knew that they weren't going to be the ones to answer all of the issues of the times, right? Like, for example, slavery, probably one of the more famous ones, and they left that up to the future leaders of this country, who have made more or less right decisions, and arguably, you might say, the Founding Fathers should have decided these things earlier for themselves, but not only would that have been something that they would be against, but they likely were not all unified or unanimous in their opinions about that issue, because, again, like with slavery, you still had people who were kind of against it, and then there were people who were for it, and so it's just that. And now, I've given kind of an explanation about this. This doesn't take too long to really criticize, really. And, this was actually all a response to another person's tweet called Reminder. As you watch the Artemis launch, we, the taxpayer, funded this $100 billion fireworks show. Yes, we did. And I would much rather it go to this than anything else. So, this doesn't make a lot of sense, because you have to remember, they're not just doing this for, like, oh, we're going back to the moon, how cool is that? They're doing it to conduct experiments. Okay, so the purpose of this whole entire thing is to prove that a test flight can be done on NASA's new spacecraft that they've been developing. It is not a $100 billion fireworks show. It just so happens that they had this cool spacecraft and they wanted to test crewed flights with it, okay? And so it just so happens that, it goes around the moon. Oh, cool. Look, we're going back to the moon. And that's not the main point. The main point is, to test this spacecraft. And the people who posted this don't seem to realize that. They just seem to think that, oh, we're just, doing this to go back or whatever. And to me, it's just a quite dumb thing to say. Like, I don't know how you can be someone who says that, oh, well, we wasted $100 billion in taxpayer money. How did we waste that? We are using this as literally a benchmark for future flights. That's not really a surprise. I mean, there's been multiple disasters on space shuttles and, spacecraft. So why are we, saying, this is a waste of money? You're just being disingenuous, and you're talking or arguing in bad faith. If we go back to this here, yeah, we can kind of look at what some people were arguing too, because I already explained a lot of this, and a lot of people are also agreeing that they are, they're just stupid, right? And they're saying, oh yeah, a lot of them are just calling him gay and calling it rage bait. And so I'm glad to see that, but that's really what I have to say here. So, yeah, this was just a thing that I wanted to talk about because I thought it was really annoying to see people do this, and I'm so glad not only me, but so many other great people on this planet agree. But yeah, let's go now to the outro, which will probably be 15 seconds. We're here again. I was just not really in the mood today. That's why this video may be of a slightly worse quality than some of my previous ones. Also, the subject was, I'm not going to say it was bad, but I've had better subjects to talk about in the videos. But other than that, that's all I really needed to say. So I guess,